Welcome back. I'm Tyler. You're watching the channel with my fracking name on it, and welcome to the 92nd installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, the Dream Doll MTO you likely forgot about has arrived in Japan. The second payment to shopping services is about to hit several of you like a brick, and orders for the Japanese release are expected to start shipping out in the next 2 weeks, leaving you enough time to consider the financial decisions you've made for yourself and/or invent a time machine to punch past you directly in the face. Meanwhile, the USA branch orders are likely set to wait for another month, and buyers are encouraged to scroll through the Dream Doll hashtags until the sheer envy eats away at their insides. While we're on the subject of things your brain has ejected in favor of processing the revolving carousel of horrors that is waking life in a dying world, the Milky Planet MTO is also set to start shipping out in Japan around next month. Those of you who did a partial payment for both releases are now hyperventilating, and we can expect the US branch to receive it in September, just in time for the heat dome covering the United States to have finished evaporating the Pacific Ocean, at which point the secrets of the deep will simply consume the remains of mankind. A more merciful end than struggling to survive inside this easy-bake oven that Texas has become. My brain cells have suffered enough heat death that I no longer care if you wear a blouse. Every breath is like breathing in soup, and at this stage, I've gotten to the point where you could dance naked with a simplicity pattern stapled to your junk, and I'd congratulate you on staying cool. Moving on to concepts that don't make me question why I haven't packed up my entire life and moved to a country not currently located in Satan's ass, the pre-order for Meta's Crystal Tarot Guidance from the Stars series has begun. Delivery is expected in October or November of this year, and the pieces available are a JSK in regular and plus size, a cloak, half bonnet, socks, and a tiny curtain for when you're feeling a little self-conscious about one side of your face or long to experience what it feels like to be a racehorse with blinders on. It can also be drawn close to signal the end to conversations with people you don't enjoy, with the caveat that some may not understand the gesture, given that we are only at the beginning stages of developing little face curtain etiquette. With that said, as that about wraps up new releases and turning towards LWLN's next special segment, the tides of summer are bearing down on us like a lifted truck. Some of you may not survive the collision, and in the interest of maintaining our numbers, welcome to the EGL Heat Survival Guide, your #1 source on increasing your chances of making it to pumpkin spice season, and or at least entertaining yourself before natural selection pulls your card. The first pro tip is to steal a baby carriage and work your way into a sprint. The cardio will produce a self-initiated breeze, the theft of infant will ensure that you don't slow down, and the ensuing medium-speed chase will provide you with an incentive to seek shady, cooler places to ditch the evidence. Loud sirens will provide a decent distraction from rising temperatures, the adrenaline of outrunning police helicopters and dogs will make the humidity the least of your worries, and if you survive the German Shepherd, light tasing, and several violations of your rights, you'll be treated to some free AC in the back of whatever vehicle they toss you in route to a privately funded institution of modern-day slavery. Whoops, did I say slavery? I meant indentured servitude. I mean forced labor camps. Racially motivated institutions of exploitation? That place with giant walls where they work people for pennies so that private companies can profit off their labor, lobby for even stricter laws to help maintain a consistent amount of human chattel, and generally work with the state to either honor their minimum occupancy agreements or pay the fines for not locking up as many of their citizens as they can, without simply sending out men with butterfly nets and the marching orders to see how many unfortunate souls they can nab before they grab someone above the poverty line. Prisons. I meant prisons. That said, if mild electroshock isn't your vibe, the second tip is to drive to your nearest grocery store and climb directly into the freezer. This strategy has the dual benefits of frightening customers and having employees consider whether they're being paid enough to extract you. It very well could lead to a class consciousness needed to start a union in your local branch. And while it may be a little on the chillier side, you're unlikely to be in there for more time than it takes security to firmly encourage you to get your butt off the taquitos. At which point I suggest you feign some malady of the brain, speak in a poorly done French accent, and announce that you're about to vomit. Everyone's going to back up, and you can stumble into the parking lot like the grocery store cryptid you've proven yourself to be. Several people will likely become TikTok famous off the footage, and you can congratulate yourself on boosting the local economy of clicks before the 5 minutes of fame wears off like the feelings of joy you once experienced as a child. Moving on, if the first two aren't enough to have you on a watch list, the third suggestion is to simply disassociate until your existence feels a lot less like an FPS and a lot more more like Barbie horse adventures. You are now the observer, and the amalgamation of atoms you once inhabited is now free to wander about unhindered by things like the need for food, rest, or an environment suitable for human life. You can watch as the meat suit bumps into multiple couches and tables, acquires mystery bruises, and breezes through life, all while being completely AFK. And the benefits include no sense of the looming inevitability of death or how hot the seatbelt is when it brushes your leg. However, downsides may materialize as waking up at 40 having completely surrendered the direction of your life to an unhealthy coping mechanism created to survive the trauma of your youth. I feel like this is a good point to introduce tip number 4, drink until you pass out. A time-honored technique in dealing with things that suck, getting twisted off the nearest bottle of bad decisions will ensure that you are too unconscious to sense heat, direction, or the general function of a few major organs. Pros will encourage you to do so in a place where you can't be kicked by small children, but those who live dangerously might encourage it as a way to resume consciousness with some amount of certainty. Extra points if you do it in your favorite outfit, as the resulting despair of ruining your favorite dress should provide enough psychic damage to deter you from checking the ambient temperature or your reflection, depending on just how hard said fit was to acquire. That said, I suggest you imbibe anything other than champagne, unless you prefer your consequences to come in the form of being skull-fucked by a fork, in the metaphorical sense. Find something less sweet, and you won't be woken by the bitter taste of your own bad decisions. A wholesome image that brings us to our 5th and final tip for the evening, and the only sincere one I feel like mustering. The best way to survive the heat in Lolita specifically is to A, not wear it, or B, swap the petticoat for a hoop skirt, put a thin petticoat on top of that, and basically sprint between any sources of AC available like you owe the heat index rent. Also, maybe drink some water so your blood isn't 98% iced coffee, swap the overknees for ankle socks, and generally speaking, try to act like it's your day with the brain cell and you aren't an orange cat with discretionary income. We'll see how many of you make it to spooky season. That's all the time we have for tonight. I'd like to thank my patrons for their unwavering faith in my ability to worsen this world, and should you like to join their number, you can head over to patreon.com/lastweeklolitanews for more content that is best left in a deep freezer within a basement that looks uninviting at best. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time.